That bag of frozen chicken nuggets sitting in your freezer right now. The one you pull out on a weeknight when dinner needs to happen in 15 minutes and the kids are already asking what's for food. The one you bought specifically because the bag said made with white meat chicken, or 100% natural or no artificial preservatives right there on the front in confident letters designed to make the choice feel responsible and safe. You assumed that meant something honest. Chicken breast, a simple coating, some seasoning. That is what a chicken nugget is supposed to be at its foundation. A piece of actual chicken, coated and cooked. Here is what almost nobody standing in the frozen food aisle actually knows before they put that bag in their cart. The USDA allows a product to be labeled as chicken nuggets while containing a specific type of processed chicken called mechanically separated chicken, produced by forcing chicken carcasses including bones and attached tissue through high-pressure sieves under significant mechanical force to produce a paste-like substance that bears no structural resemblance to a piece of chicken breast. Mechanically separated chicken must be disclosed on the ingredient label when it is present. But its presence in a product does not prevent that product from carrying white meat chicken language on the front of the bag as long as some white meat is technically present somewhere in the formulation. Separately, a preservative called TBHQ, tertiary butyl hydroquinone, derived from butane, is present in the frying oils used across a significant percentage of commercially produced frozen chicken nuggets, and the European Food Safety Authority completed a reassessment in 2020 concluding that TBHQ had sufficient genotoxic potential, meaning potential to damage DNA at the cellular level, to warrant a meaningful reduction in acceptable daily intake across European markets. American regulations have not followed that reassessment, and TBHQ remains in widespread use in American frozen food products without any disclosure requirement on the front of the package. And a category of sodium phosphate additives used across the majority of commercial chicken nugget products to help the chicken retain moisture during processing, freezing, and reheating contributes to a dietary phosphate load that nutrition researchers have specifically flagged as a concern for children eating processed foods multiple times per week, because phosphate additives from processed food sources are absorbed at a higher rate than naturally occurring phosphate from whole foods and have been linked in peer-reviewed research to disrupted calcium metabolism at elevated long-term intake levels. We pulled the ingredient labels off 10 of the biggest frozen chicken nugget brands sold across America. We read every single line, checked what type of chicken is actually being used, what preservatives are present in the oil and coating, what the sodium content looks like relative to daily recommendations for children specifically, and how the front of the packaging compares to what the ingredient list actually discloses. Some of what we found is completely standard for the frozen chicken industry overall. Some of it represents a genuine gap between what the packaging implies and what is actually inside the breaded coating. We are counting down from the least concerning to the most concerning, and at the end I will give you 5 brands that are actually using real chicken the way the package suggests. Let's get into it. Bell & Evans has built its commercial identity specifically around air-chilled chicken raised without antibiotics, with a supply chain that traces back to Pennsylvania farms operating under specific animal welfare and production standards that the brand makes publicly available rather than keeping internal. The ingredient list on Bell & Evans frozen nuggets stays notably shorter than most of the mainstream brands we will get to further down this list. Chicken breast, water, sea salt, and a coating made from recognizable ingredients without the long chain of phosphate additives, flavor enhancers, and oil preservatives that dominate the mainstream frozen nugget category. Bell & Evans uses expeller-pressed oils rather than oils preserved with TBHQ, which addresses one of the primary concerns documented across the broader category. It costs more per bag than every brand on the avoid portion of this list. That cost reflects whole muscle chicken breast, antibiotic-free raising practices, and a coating built from ingredients you could name at a kitchen table. This brand appears at the top of this list not because of any concern but as the baseline against which everything that follows gets measured. Number 9. Applegate Naturals Chicken Nuggets. Applegate has spent years building its brand specifically around cleaner ingredient lists, no antibiotics ever policies, and humanely raised sourcing standards applied consistently across its entire product line rather than selectively to a premium subline within a broader conventional portfolio. The Applegate chicken nugget ingredient list includes chicken breast, water, and a coating built from whole-grain breading ingredients without the mechanically separated chicken, TBHQ, or extensive phosphate additive chain that shows up in several brands further down this list. The no antibiotics ever claim is backed by USDA process verified status, which requires documentation and auditing rather than simply being a self-reported marketing statement. The humane raised sourcing adds a welfare standard that most of the mainstream brands on this list do not match or even claim. Applegate represents a meaningfully cleaner option in the mainstream frozen food aisle, available at most grocery chains rather than requiring a specialty store trip, which matters practically for families trying to make a real switch rather than a theoretical one. Number 8. Perdue Simply Smart Organics Chicken Nuggets. Perdue is one of the largest poultry producers in the United States, and the Simply Smart Organics line represents the brand's attempt to participate in the growing consumer demand for cleaner, more transparently sourced chicken products without fully separating that line from the broader industrial supply chain that the parent company operates. The ingredient list on Perdue Simply Smart Organics Nuggets includes organic chicken, water, organic whole wheat flour, and a shorter coding list than several competitors. The USDA organic certification addresses the antibiotic and feed quality questions. The whole wheat coating component is a genuine point of difference from the enriched bleached flour coatings used in most mainstream nugget products. What's worth noting here is that Perdue's organic line and Perdue's conventional production exist within the same corporate structure, and the farming practices, welfare standards, and processing oversight that apply to the organic line are not automatically representative of the company's overall approach to poultry production. The organic certification is real and worth having. The brand story that surrounds it does more work than the certification alone would warrant. Number 7. Trader Joe's Chicken Nuggets. Trader Joe's has built its grocery identity around curation and cleaner formulations, and its chicken nugget offering reflects that positioning with a shorter ingredient list and better sourcing transparency than most of what sits in a conventional grocery store freezer section. The Trader Joe's chicken nuggets list chicken breast meat, water, and a coating that stays away from the most concerning additives while using canola oil rather than an oil preserved with TBHQ. The house brand format means specific farm sourcing and welfare documentation is not independently verifiable, which is a consistent limitation of Trader Joe's private label products across categories. The chicken is not certified organic and does not carry a no antibiotics ever third-party verified claim, which means the sourcing practices behind the chicken itself are not documented at the same level as the Applegate or Bell & Evans options. But relative to the mainstream national brands we are about to get into, the ingredient list is meaningfully cleaner and the overall formulation more defensible. Number 6. Tyson Air-Fried Chicken Nuggets. Tyson is the largest poultry producer in the United States by total volume, a company whose scale means that a meaningful percentage of all the chicken sold in America in any form passes through some part of the Tyson production system. The air-fried line specifically markets itself around a healthier preparation method, positioning air frying as a meaningful health improvement over traditional frying in a way that implies the overall product is a better choice than conventional frozen nuggets. The air frying production method does reduce the total fat content of the finished product compared to traditional deep frying, which is a real difference worth acknowledging. But the ingredient list on Tyson air-fried nuggets still includes chicken breast with rib meat, water, modified food starch, salt, sodium phosphate, sodium aluminum phosphate, and TBHQ listed in the oil used for the initial coating process. Sodium aluminum phosphate is an additive used as a leavening agent in the breading, and it is the aluminum component that is worth noting specifically because peer-reviewed research examining dietary aluminum exposure has raised questions about cumulative aluminum intake from multiple processed food sources in the diet. Questions that regulators have not resolved into specific restrictions but that are worth being aware of in a product specifically purchased for children who may eat it multiple times per week. Number 5. Banquet Chicken Nuggets. Banquet has built its entire brand identity around the lowest possible price point in the frozen food category, positioned explicitly for budget-constrained households who need to feed people quickly without spending more than a minimal amount per serving. At Banquet's price point, the ingredient decisions are driven entirely by cost efficiency rather than nutritional or welfare considerations, and the ingredient list reflects that reality comprehensively. Chicken, listed without a white meat or breast meat specification on several varieties, meaning a mixture of chicken parts including lower value cuts and in some varieties mechanically separated chicken. Water, modified food starch, salt, sodium phosphate, autolyzed yeast extract functioning as a flavor enhancer similarly to MSG without requiring that specific term on the label, artificial flavor, and TBHQ in the frying oil. The sodium content per serving reaches levels that represent a significant percentage of the daily sodium recommendation for a child under the age of 8 in just the nugget serving itself before any dipping sauce is added. Banquet is not doing anything illegal here. It is doing exactly what a food product optimized entirely for the lowest possible retail price does when it is made at industrial scale. If you have made it this far through this list, you are probably already thinking about what is sitting in your own freezer right now. Subscribe to Consumer Alert right now, because we do exactly this every single week, pulling apart the ingredient lists on the foods that families are eating multiple times per week without any idea what the back of the bag actually says. We have 5 more entries left before we get to the brands actually worth trusting, and the next one is one of the most purchased frozen nugget products in America specifically because it targets children directly through its marketing. Number 4. Tyson Fun Nuggets and Dinosaur-Shaped Chicken Nuggets. The shaped chicken nugget category, where nuggets are pressed into dinosaur, star, or other recognizable fun shapes specifically to appeal to children, deserves its own entry separate from the standard Tyson nugget line because the marketing strategy is distinct in a way that matters. Shaped nuggets require the chicken to be processed into a paste that can be molded and hold the pressed shape during freezing and cooking, which means the chicken component in shaped nuggets is almost always more heavily processed than in standard nuggets regardless of the brand. The Tyson Dinosaur Nugget ingredient list includes chicken, water, modified food starch, salt, sodium phosphate, sodium aluminum phosphate, autolyzed yeast extract, natural flavor, and TBHQ in the frying oil. The shaped format requires a chicken texture that cannot be achieved with whole muscle cuts, meaning the chicken going into the dinosaur shape has been processed beyond what standard nugget production requires to achieve moldability, and that processing removes the structural evidence of what part of the bird the meat originally came from in a way that standard nugget production does not. Number 3. Great Value Frozen Chicken Nuggets. Walmart's house brand, sold in enormous volume at a price point sitting among the lowest available for any frozen chicken product in the American market. The ingredient list on Great Value Chicken Nuggets includes chicken with natural flavor injected, water, modified food starch, salt, sodium phosphate, and TBHQ in the oil. Chicken with natural flavor injected means flavoring compounds have been injected directly into the chicken meat itself during processing, separate from the flavoring that occurs through the coating and seasoning process. Natural flavor injected into the raw chicken is used to compensate for the flavor that processing, freezing, and reheating remove from chicken that has been handled at high-volume industrial scale, flavor that a piece of properly raised, freshly cooked chicken breast would naturally have without requiring an injection of manufactured flavoring compounds to be detectable once it reaches the consumer. Walmart does not disclose the specific farms, welfare standards, or antibiotic use policies behind its Great Value chicken sourcing, and at Walmart's purchasing scale, the cost optimization that drives ingredient decisions in this product represents billions of servings of the resulting formulation going into American households every single year. Number 2. Store brand and generic frozen chicken nuggets sold under regional grocery chain private labels at the lowest price points in the frozen food section. This is more of a broad category than a single brand, but it covers a significant percentage of frozen nugget purchases happening in American grocery stores every week, specifically because store-brand nuggets sit at price points that make them the default choice for families shopping on a tight grocery budget without the ability to spend the premium that cleaner alternatives require. Store-brand frozen nuggets are typically produced by contract manufacturers supplying multiple retailers simultaneously, using formulations driven entirely by the price point negotiated for that contract rather than by any specific quality or welfare standard the retailer holds itself to through independent verification. The chicken type, the phosphate additive load, the TBHQ presence, and the sodium content per serving all vary across different retailer house brands, but the pattern that emerges consistently across this tier is that without a third-party certification, a verifiable no antibiotics policy, and an ingredient list that specifies breast meat specifically, the product at this price point is almost certainly built from a more heavily processed, less specifically sourced chicken input than the packaging's photographs of golden nuggets suggest. Number 1. Ultra Discount Frozen Chicken Nugget Multi-Packs, sold at dollar stores and the deepest discount shelves of grocery chains, priced so far below every other nugget product on this list that the economic question of what chicken and what production standard made that price possible deserves to be asked before the bag goes into your cart. At the absolute bottom of the frozen nugget price spectrum, the chicken component can shift toward mechanically separated chicken as a primary input rather than as a minor addition to a whole muscle base. Combined with the maximum sodium phosphate load the category permits to help the paste material hold together through the molding, breading, frying, freezing, distribution, and reheating process that stands between the raw input and the product on a plate. TBHQ appears in the frying oil at levels approaching the maximum permitted under FDA regulation. Sodium content per serving at this tier routinely reaches levels representing over 40% of the daily recommended sodium intake for a child in a standard serving before any condiment is added. There is no antibiotic use policy disclosed. There is no farm welfare standard claimed. There is no third-party certification of any kind. There is a price and a photograph of golden nuggets on the front of the bag, and the gap between those two things and the actual production reality behind them is as wide as anywhere in this entire category. That is the full list. 10 entries, 3 repeating patterns across nearly every single one of them. Mechanically separated chicken, or heavily processed chicken paste standing in for or mixed with whole muscle chicken breast. TBHQ in the frying oil disclosed somewhere in the ingredient list but never visible on the front of the bag where it would actually influence a purchasing decision. And a sodium and phosphate additive load per serving that consistently exceeds what researchers studying dietary patterns in children consuming multiple processed food items per week have flagged as a cumulative concern, not in a single serving but in the pattern of daily consumption that a popular, convenient, frequently purchased frozen product makes easy to fall into without noticing. Before we get to what is actually worth buying, here is what you can check tonight with the bag sitting in your own freezer. Start with the chicken specification test. Find the chicken in the ingredient list and read exactly how it is described. Chicken breast alone as the first ingredient with nothing following it in parentheses is the strongest signal you are starting from a whole muscle cut. Chicken listed without the word breast following it means lower value parts have been included. Chicken with natural flavor injected means flavoring has been added directly to the meat to compensate for processing, and mechanically separated chicken listed anywhere means paste produced from mechanically processed carcass material is present in the product regardless of what the shaped form or the front of the bag implies about what you are eating. Then look specifically for TBHQ anywhere in the ingredient list. It typically appears within a parenthetical note about the frying oil, listed as something like soybean oil preserved with TBHQ. Its presence is legally required to be disclosed somewhere on the label. Its presence in a product eaten by children multiple times per week represents the specific exposure scenario that the European Food Safety Authority's 2020 reassessment concluded warranted a reduction in acceptable daily intake, a regulatory conclusion that has not produced any change in the American product but that is worth knowing before the next bag goes into the cart. Finally, check the sodium content against your child's actual daily recommended intake. The American Heart Association recommends no more than 1,500 milligrams of sodium per day for children under the age of 8. A standard serving of several mainstream frozen nugget brands reaches 400 to 600 milligrams before any dipping sauce is added. If your child eats nuggets multiple times a week alongside other processed foods at other meals, the cumulative sodium picture from nuggets alone is worth calculating rather than leaving as an abstract concern. The first good pick is Bell & Evans frozen chicken breast nuggets, the starting point discussed at the opening of this list. Whole chicken breast, air-chilled, antibiotic-free, raised on Pennsylvania farms operating under specific documented welfare standards, coated in recognizable ingredients, and fried in oil without TBHQ. The ingredient list is short enough to read in 10 seconds. It costs more than every mainstream brand on the avoid portion of this list. The price reflects whole muscle breast meat from an antibiotic-free supply chain rather than a heavily processed additive supplemented product engineered to hit a low retail price point. The second good pick is Applegate Naturals chicken nuggets, covered at the start of this list, available at mainstream grocery chains rather than requiring a specialty trip. No antibiotics ever, USDA process verified. Whole chicken breast, cleaner coating without the phosphate and TBHQ profile of the mainstream category. For families who cannot access or afford Bell & Evans, Applegate represents the most practical mainstream alternative that addresses the primary concerns documented across this list. The third good pick is Perdue Simply Smart Organics chicken nuggets, specifically for families prioritizing the organic certification as their primary concern. The USDA organic status addresses antibiotic use and feed quality at the farm level in a way that has been independently verified. The whole wheat coating adds a nutritional distinction from enriched bleached flour coatings. The shorter ingredient list compared to mainstream Purdue conventional products reflects the different production standard the organic certification requires. The fourth good pick is making your own chicken nuggets at home in a batch large enough to freeze for the week. Chicken breast cut into pieces, dipped in beaten egg, coated in a mixture of whole grain breadcrumbs, salt, garlic powder, and paprika, placed on a sheet pan and either baked at 400 degrees or air-fried until cooked through and golden. Cool completely, freeze in a single layer on a sheet pan, then transfer to a sealed bag. The ingredient list is chicken breast, egg, breadcrumbs, and whatever seasoning you chose. No TBHQ, no mechanically separated chicken, no injected flavoring. No sodium phosphate extending shelf life through chemical moisture retention. The cost per serving is lower than every premium branded nugget on this list, and the complete ingredient transparency is something no packaged product can honestly match. The fifth good pick is sourcing frozen chicken nuggets from a local farm, butcher, or small batch producer in your region who makes nuggets from whole chicken breast and freezes them in quantities designed for household use rather than national distribution. These products are increasingly available at farmers markets, local butcher shops, and community-supported agriculture programs that have expanded into prepared food items. The ingredient list will be short because small batch production does not require the shelf life extension, texture standardization, and flavoring compensation additives that industrial-scale frozen food production depends on. The texture will be less perfectly uniform than a factory-produced nugget because whole muscle chicken breast varies naturally in size and shape. That variation is not a quality flaw. It is what an actual piece of chicken looks like before it has been processed into a standardized engineered shape designed to look the same in every bag across every store in the country. Here is the one rule genuinely worth keeping every single time you are standing in front of the frozen food case reaching for chicken nuggets. Flip the bag before it goes in your cart. Look for three things. Chicken breast listed alone as the first ingredient without a parenthetical or an injected flavoring note following it. The complete absence of TBHQ anywhere in the ingredient list, including within the oil description. And a sodium content per serving that you can fit within a realistic picture of everything else your child will eat that day without the cumulative total becoming a daily pattern worth reconsidering. If this changed how you think about the frozen nuggets your family has been eating without question, hit the like button right now and tell me in the comments which brand was sitting in your freezer before you started watching this video. Subscribe to Consumer Alert so you catch it every single week we open up another label the food industry was counting on you never reading closely enough. Stay sharp, read the back of the bag before you trust the front of it, and I will see you in the next one.